Welcome to Selling Circular, the podcast dedicated to exploring the innovative minds and business models shaping our transition to a circular economy. I'm Gar Punnett, CEO of LoopLayer.
I'm Sabira Lakhani, VP of Product at SpareTech.
I like the rhythm that you're setting there. We are getting into that intro rhythm where we're able to riff with it. We're able to do it off the top of our head. Today we're talking about something that might completely change how you see waste materials. Picture this. Our guest is gonna intro this in a moment, but an old billboard vinyl, something from Coca-Cola, something that's used for an highway advertising and needs to get reused for something. Or that expired fire hose being turned into something else. Maybe it's a piece of furniture. Maybe a gas pipeline that formerly had a job that was needed but then was never used and gets turned into something else. All of this isn't just some sort of reuse futuristic dream where everything has a potential application. This is where our guest takes that to the next level by providing these types of solutions for reuse, for repurposing in warehouses across the United States.
When I think about new with tags in the fashion space, I never really thought that this would be true in the industrial space. And it's true. And the more and more we talk to guests, the more and more I realize a lot of new stuff goes unused. Anyway.
Yeah, I think my greatest revelation working in this industry is I wish there was some number that says the amount that's actually created and then not purchased or used.
Yeah, it's just sitting there.
It's much bigger than you think it is. Yes, it's a scary bit.
Our guest today, Damon Carson from Repurposed Materials, he thinks about the before, what the either unused or used item would be, and the before and after picture. That's like a transformational moment where industrial cast-offs can get a second act, either through a reuse or being repurposed. And so he sees himself as a curator. We see him as a curator. And instead of deciding what art hangs in what museums, he's deciding what industrial materials deserve a new life instead of the landfill.
I mean, I'm looking right here on the website. You'll hear me geek out about this as the episode begins, but the sound-absorbing foam panels, something we could use in a studio.
Ooh.
You can get them for 2/3 cheaper than 60% off of what you might find at a normal Amazon or Walmart or other type of store, and you're gonna buy it in bulk. You're gonna get 240 panels, but still an opportunity for me to cover my entire office in soundproofing panels, so I can just live in a very quiet little environment. But I was sort of geeking out on this. Did you find anything?
Yeah, I mean, well, some things are funny. I came across a naughty but nice rubber floor mat.
I love that.
4x6, so you can fit it anywhere. But also some surprising thing. I mean, that was surprising. But things I just don't think I really. I mean, not being super. I'm new to the industrial space at SpareTech, but things I just never really knew. You could buy a conveyor belt secondhand. I mean, that's wow.
And you might have 10 of them. It's and that's just, in that industrial reuse space and repurposing space, these are volumes that are just slightly unfathomable for the layperson who's not in the waste industry. But what is fascinating about how Damon operates this very unique space is it fits in between this brokerage and warehousing perspective where he's really taking possession of materials that corporations are eager to discard and really using a warehouse to create time and space in order to find that match and connect them with buyers who see that hidden potential of repurposing. And as he said, I mean, just as much as he's part curator, he's part gambler. And that's the really interesting part of this is it's part gambler, part matchmaker, and entirely about seeing the opportunity where others just see waste.
And that's what I mean, the question also came up, why do companies only see waste? And we get into that in the episode. And a lot of it is we prefer destruction because you don't really know what it takes, and you don't know what it takes, or you might not have that moment of creativity or opportunity to explore the deep ocean of possibilities that instead of going that pipeline heading straight to the landfill, what you could imagine what could be done
Yeah,
alternatively.
it's hard. That's just it. It's hard,
Yeah,
and we get into
it's
that.
not easy, yeah.
So whether you're an
Mhm.
entrepreneur looking for untapped opportunities of materials to maybe take advantage of, or just someone who will start seeing more of the wonderful world of reuse, differently after this conversation. I need to work on wonderful world of reuse over and over and over again.
Say it
But
fast.
it's really about exploring that line between art and economics of
Mhm.
finding repurposed opportunities and second life. This is story time with Damon. This one's it's fun. He's gonna share some good anecdotes, some really fun things about how repurposing can work if you're just willing to get creative, both with the purpose and the economics. Enjoy. I have tracked you and the business model for some time. I also just got lost for a half hour in what was a reuse candy store online. I was just looking through all the materials, all of the things available. It's hard for me to I don't know, I express this I guess all the time. Reuse is something like you can't unsee. And once you start to see possibilities of different things and how they can be used, it's just you're done for. You're going to see different applications for things all the time. What do you think is that what was that like for you, really? And then how do you sort of proselytize that to others?
Interesting take. I like that, Gar. So repurposing. A lot of times I just say it's before and after, before and after. And when you think about it, there's many things that appeal to us humans that are before and after. One easy example is HGTV, Home and Garden TV. The apartment looked like this, now it looks like this. The kitchen looks like this, now it looks like this. So this process of before and after transformation maybe might be a good word. I don't know. I think it just appeals to our raw senses, and that would be my answer.
Where did that aha moment come for you though in this? I mean, there must have been a moment for you even where you were like, something's off here. Like this is possible.
Yeah, so this is going back to probably the genesis of the company.
A little bit. Yeah.
The My aha, I like to call it my Reese's moment where the chocolate meets the peanut butter. Um, I was owned an unrelated business, and a artist, high-end airbrush artist, was a subcontractor of mine, and he was walking out one day. He also, as an artist, worked in the advertising industry. He said, Damon, if you ever get a chance to buy an old advertising billboard vinyl, the kinds on the highways, Budweiser, Chevrolet, Coca-Cola, you ought to try to get one. They make a great drop cloth for painting. So life number one in advertising signs, mellow yellow or some soda or the newest, latest movie coming out. Life number two, put it under your work area where you're painting and it becomes a drop cloth. So that was the Reese's moment where, oh my gosh, there are probably, at that point, it was a hypothesis, lots of cast offs and discards of American industry that can give a very different alternate life number two.
And you
Fantastic.
have physical space. I mean, there's like in the world of reuse, there's many different types of businesses. There's like the digital infrastructure, which you have like a front end, right? The e-commerce, but then you also actually hold the inventory. So is it that you buy and then hold and then find a seller, or you try to match make at the beginning? Like, what's your approach to the reuse hustle?
There are many angles, as you properly see. Brokerage, it's my definition. I don't know if it's the right definition. A broker would sit in the office and try to take it from business to buyer, source to buyer and never touch it, try to make that connection directly. That happened. I mean, there's lots of people that do that successfully. That happens to not be our business model. We take possession. As you referenced, we have 6 warehouses across the United States. One of the things I think it's funny. It's in a lot of industries. I like sports. So much of an offense or creating a scoring opportunity. It doesn't matter if it's soccer. It doesn't matter if it's basketball. You're trying to create time and space. Well, in the reuse industry, repurposing industry, warehouses, you take possession, you create time, but to create time to find a new owner, you also have to have space. That's a illustration that I come up with a lot of times, but in answer to the question, yes, we warehouse it because some of these waste streams are so large. Sometimes it takes a long time to find a single buyer, if that's what it is, or sometimes the waste stream is so large that even if you sell one a day, you just have so many, it might take you 400 days to sell through it.
How do you
On that,
then
go for it.
how do you then that's a cost to your business, the space, right?
Sure.
And the brokers, also interesting, I think, on the sports analogy, if you're competing with the brokers, they have that advantage of not having to pay for that space, but you probably have the advantage of having maybe more deals or more customers or a wider type of
More time.
inventory. What are those trade-offs?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
think I
time, yeah.
think the broker in that illustration tends to work on smaller margins because they have less time. They might only have a week to rehome something. And, anytime if you're trying to sell your home fast, what do you have to do to the price typically? You have to shrink the price. Versus if you have 6 months to sell your home or a year to sell your home, you can wait on the buyer that's in love with your home. What does that do? That space, that time in that case, gives you typically more margin, and that would be one of the differences, I would say. So we we have more margin. We're willing to. There's an old saying in well, I think it's a lot of businesses, but in this game, fast nickel or slow dime. Fast nickel or slow dime. Neither one's right or wrong. Both of them are business models, and plenty
Yeah.
of people do well financially off of both models. You just kind of have to pick. You know, you got to pick tacos and be Taco Bell, or you got to be pizza and Pizza Hut. I mean, both of them are
Yeah.
successful.
And then one more, I guess, sorry, Graham,
No.
is the follow-up there is, how long did it take you to build an expertise and confidence that what you were taking on was going to get sold and it was worth it? Because these materials aren't like, it might, if you're not in the industrial space, it might feel like, oh, these are, I'm putting big dollars to work. So yeah, curious what that journey of was like for you.
Well, confidence is relative, right? I still do deals that 15 years later I'm not super confident on. Over time,
Mm,
those deals are less. I think it's experience. I've taken in things over 15 years that I'll never say yes to again. You just have to learn the hard way. And by the same token, certainly there's many of our things. And a lot of it for us is it similar? Have we dealt something that's, as I just said, similar but different? But I make I don't know that it's a joke. It's kind of a joke that I do all the procurement for the company, even though it's a national company. I'm the one that decides. I use a museum term, a zoo term, curate the inventory. What do we say yes to? What do you say no to? Just like an art museum, the curator decides what piece of art hangs on the wall and which one stays in the basement or never gets acquired in the first place. The joke is, I don't have to get on an airplane on Friday and fly to Las Vegas for the weekend to gamble. I just get to sit in my office during the weekday and decide what to say yes to, what to say no to. And there is a fair amount of gambling to it. Even as experienced as you are, there's inventories that you think will be gone in 3 weeks, you have in 2 years. Some things you think it's going to take 18 months to sell through it, and for whatever reason you get lucky, and 7 months later, it's all gone. So it's a funny game.
Is there a top spot for either category? I'd love to know. Is there one where you're like, oh, I never thought this was gonna move, and it did? And then is there one that you're like, I really wanted this one to move, and it just didn't?
There are, Gar, I have to be honest, I am totally
Yeah.
drawing a blank on both of those spectrums.
Totally.
So
Yes.
I will bring up that question when maybe we'll be talking
When it
about
just
something
hits.
else. And no, absolutely. There's ones that
Yeah.
I can't believe we still have. There's no way this is not selling. And then there's others that, well, I'll give you a quick seller that surprised me.
Yeah.
So here's one that comes to mind. It's kind of one of my favorite repurposes, actually, just because it's so offbeat. I'll tell you the story. So Comcast cable, we're all familiar with Comcast cable. They reached out, this is multiple years ago, but they had concrete blocks, 4-inch thick, 4 foot by 4 foot. What they did in life, number one, they would put these concrete pads out into, like they're building a homeowners association, a street. They would set the concrete on the ground, drill holes in the concrete, set their telecommunications equipment, their cable TV, HBO, ESPN, etc. And then they would run fiber optic, through the holes to each one of the homes. Makes sense. For whatever reason, they were done with these concrete pads. It was like 2 truckloads. And they said, hey, we're just going to send these concrete recycling. We're going to grind them up. We're going to landfill them. We don't want them. Can you help? So we said, sure. And we brought them in. And, a lot of times I kind of scratch my chin and think, what do I think is going to be the repurpose for this? Sometimes I'm right. Many, many, many times I'm wrong. In this case, surprisingly, I thought, well, we'll surely get rid of them, but I don't know if that it's going to be fast. It only took, in that case, 2-3 weeks. And we are started in Denver, Colorado. The state right to the north of us is Wyoming. So a motor freight trucking company reaches out and buys them all. And I was the one that happened to be the salesperson. I said, that's great. Love it. What in the world is a motor freight company going to do with a bunch of 4-inch by 4 foot by 4 foot concrete blocks that probably weigh 300 pounds each? He said, well, when we're running half empty trucks, light loads to Wyoming on windy days, our trucks have a high risk of blowing over.
Ballast.
Yeah, he just needed weight, ballast, exactly the right word. When he saw those concrete blocks, instant solution to, if it's half loaded, they'll load the other half with concrete blocks. End of the day, they unload the concrete blocks. And so that was one of the ones that really surprised me at how fast it sold. And I love the creativity because, again, the business we're in, very logistically trucking intensive business. So I'm familiar with the trucking industry, somewhat, but I would have never come up with that as a solution 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. But when you show one of these cast-offs discards to the right industry, a lot of times you never know what the right industry is going to be. It's the light bulb goes off in their head and, oh, that's a solution.
Well, that was going to be my question is like, how do you, I love you're calling it gambling because it is that, but as a salesperson, you must also have creativity and be like, what could this be used for and who could I show it to? So I guess the question is like, how do you even gamble on who you're trying to sell to?
The creative sales element. Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Little business secret. So here's a little, here's the Coca-Cola recipe. Here's the KFC fried chicken recipe. It's not really a recipe, but so that's what people often think is that we have this R&D, research and development department looking at these waste streams, coming up with, oh, this is going to be used in agriculture. This is going to be used in manufacturing. Hey, the railroads could use this. Well, that's not the case. We don't have an R&D. We joke repurpose and development. We don't have that staff. We look for things, 3 words that are generic, versatile, and adaptable. Generic, versatile, and adaptable. Those concrete blocks that we just talked about. GVA, generic, versatile, adaptable. And then you take something GVA, generic, versatile, adaptable, and you just show it to a broad, wide, diverse industrial audience. The joke becomes, and it's not really a joke, but we never know if it's going to be the cranberry farmer in Wisconsin, the copper mine in Arizona, or the golf course superintendent in Florida, or the semi-truck owning operator in Denver, Colorado that says, hey, I can use this. I can solve a problem with that. And so it takes the gambling a little bit. I mean, it lowers your risk. How's that? It lowers your risk. Now, what you still don't know is it going to take you 2 months or 2 years to find that second alternate life? If you want a fun story that just happened in the last month, gas pipe, polyethylene, 4-inch diameter gas pipe, 1,400 foot. It's coiled. It's a little bit flexible. Life number one, it was supposed to be for natural gas, buried for natural gas transmission for, heat in our homes. I didn't know that. A certain percentage of our waste, and I use air quotes, waste, is new unused, but there's some reason it's obsolete to primary industry. In the case of this natural gas pipe, I didn't know this, but natural gas pipe has to be installed, buried in the ground 3 years from the date of manufacture. 3 years from the date of manufacture. So this utility company reaches out, hey, we've got 30 of these coils. And we negotiated a deal. We landed them. So the first thing I went to is you always try for reuse before repurposing. Typically, there's more margin in reuse than repurposing. Not always, but oftentimes. And so we sent it out to a bunch of natural gas installers, construction companies. First question they asked, what's the date stamped on the pipe? We said March 2022. March 2022. It's now October of 2022. So it's 5 months, again, it's funny, expired. We think about food. We think about milk that's expired. But here, plastic pipe meant to be buried in the ground for years has a, again, air quotes, expiration date. Oh, darn. Now what do we do? So no natural gas contractor in America is going to install it because they can't for safety and liability reasons. Well, again, we put it out to a broad audience. Like I said, we got 30 coils. 2 coils were purchased by a Minnesota hog farmer, pigs, swine. And he's going to use it to transfer manure from his hog barn out to the field where he's going to use it as fertilizer. And, it's the old joke. Does he care that it was made in March 2022? He couldn't give a rip because his mandates, his requirements, his laws, well, for maneuvering, for moving manure, there are no regulations. Natural gas,
should be
absolutely. Manure, no. So we still have 18 coils to go, but that's 2 of them that have gotten a very different life number 2 than what was intended by the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer.
So, I mean, what about this do you think is part education, part creativity, maybe somehow education and lack of understanding for someone who's getting rid of something where I'm sure you get this all the time. They call you up and they're like, I didn't know this was an option. I didn't know we could maybe somehow sell this. Why do we continue to lag in that category of people thinking through repurposing or reusing?
I think an illustration I would use is when you are 18 years old and you're ready to get out in the work world or thinking about a college degree, or 22, the careers are firemen, teachers because you were a student, the doctor because you went to the doctor as a kid, your mom's occupation, your dad's occupation, you probably know your best friend's dad's occupation and his mom's occupation, but your world is small, occupationally speaking. You don't know that out in Oregon, there's this occupation. In South Carolina, so we're narrow. And I would use that illustration and carry it over to waste. Again, we're industrial. So if the manufacturer, the big company, if they don't have a vision for it, if they're in North Dakota, they have no idea what goes on at a shrimp farm in Louisiana. No idea. So yeah, through their lens, it's waste. There's nothing in North Dakota that this can get used for. A Wall Street word we use is arbitrage. But you take that to a different industry, a different geography, shrimp farming in Louisiana, and all of a sudden, it's a solution.
I love that take because, again, that speaks to it's not their job to figure out reuse. That's not even a
Or
part of their
repurpose.
mandate
Let's use the right
usually.
words. Repurpose
Or
meaning very
yeah,
different Second Life.
and I think that's a fair thing that we actually need to even delineate, which is reuse being, you've kind of made this point, direct to reuse, and then repurposing being
Alternate life number
alterations.
2.
Yeah, alternate
Billboards,
life number
my
two. Yeah,
Reese's moment. The advertising
yeah,
agency, CBS Outdoor, they didn't print Mickey Mouse on a big piece of waterproof vinyl to be a pond liner for somebody. They did that because
right.
they would put that out on the interstate saying, please come to Disneyland and spend your $10,000 to take your family to see Mickey Mouse. That's why they printed it. Just happens
Yeah.
that the attributes, characteristics, and engineering make it waterproof, and you can use it as a pond liner in life number 2.
I'm curious because you go to a broad audience, but you were focused on industrial. It almost felt like a little bit counterintuitive from like a startup perspective is like if you stay focused on something, then you can find the right customer for what you're buying, on the disposition side. I'm curious like how you decided what level of broad of categories to focus on and does industrial feel focused enough or not focused enough, and have you landed in any conclusion there on like your slice of the world?
Well, I think that's evolved over time, certainly scaling, growing. I remember our first few waste streams in those early years. I mean, if I got 3 pallets of something, I was scared to death. Can we rehome these 3 pallets? Now it's you have to have 12 pallets minimum, which floor space wise is about a half a semi load for us to even be interested. I get offered 3 pallets of this and that all the time, and I just decline because we've grown enough that it's just not efficient for us. Now, that typically in those cases, depending on what it is, but I make a lot of referrals, lots of suggestions to Habitat for Humanity restores that are all over the country because they're really set up for those, I call them the onesie twosies. Where we've
Yep.
gotten to in 15 years, we thrive. We're better at the 12 pallets, half a truckload, 1 truckload, 3 truckloads, 6 truckloads of something. And I think it's just an evolution. Back to your question, it's just in the early years, I didn't want a semi load of anything because again, one of the things we talk about a lot is supply demand. I mean, there's just so much just basic economics. We have to keep supply demand, whatever we bring in, we have to have some level of equilibrium. And sometimes it's like this. Well, that's not good business. So you have to keep the supply demand sort of in equilibrium over time.
I love you bringing up basic economics there because we are and are not in our circular economy, reuse, repurposing space. That equilibrium's weird.
Well, I would
Like
say
you're,
with reuse,
yeah,
barring a couple of things that I can think about, it's equilibrium is way, 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 way out of whack. As in, there's way
right.
more supply than there is
Yeah,
demand. The one
yeah,
industry, I mean, I'm sure it's not the only, the one industry that I can think of, I won't pop quiz you guys. The one industry that I think is
that'd be a
in
first.
rough equilibrium is used automobiles.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
it's fairly if your 3-year lease runs out and your Ford truck, somebody's going to buy a 3-year-old Ford truck and you drive it for 5 years, it's now 8 years old. There's yet another person that's going to drive the 8-year-old truck. And the beautiful thing about the automobile industry is once that Ford truck is 15 years old and at 300,000 miles in craters, what happens? It goes to a salvage yard and it gets parted out because, yeah, the transmission blew, so that it's no longer economical to fix it as a truck. But you know what? The engine's still good. Oh, by the way, the passenger mirror is still good, and mine just got broken off on my truck. So that's one industry in the reuse sector that I think is in equilibrium. I mean, there's probably, I think clothing is
Yeah,
If you
get right.
go world, if you have a international view, I mean, I don't know if you've traveled in the third world countries. My wife and I have been fortunate enough, and you know, Africa is clothed in the Western world's used clothing. So I think the textile, specifically the clothing industry, is in rough equilibrium, but I think of those are two, but I could tell you about 10 others that are way out of equilibrium where supply far, far, far exceeds demand.
Well, and I think that's where, I mean, we had a guest on that talked about, it's one of my favorite anecdotes, that they've got a solution to recycle down feathers. And he's saying, I could get as many feathers to recycle as I want. I can't find enough people who are willing to buy them. And so that's really then starting up that demand cycle is always a part of our equation in that reuse and repurpose. How did you go from, it kind of takes us back a little bit on Genesis and origin, but when you were thinking about going to 3 pallet to more, that's a big step that takes on a certain amount of risk, and then you're trying to then create that equilibrium of supply and demand. Can you walk us through that? Is it sort of, I think that would be inspiring for any circular economy type of entrepreneur who's like, how do I balance this inventory that I have and where it's going to go?
I don't know that I have the magic bullet answer.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I mean, it's a often used business word. In fact, I think it's even come up. I mean, you just have to scale. I mean, you just have to, you buy 2, you sell 2, you buy 4, you sell 3, you buy 3, you sell 5. And it's just got to be done. I don't know about, it's got to be done over time. Your time frame to do it might be 6 months. It might be 6 years, but you just kind of have to. I
It's
mean,
got to be
Walmart,
incremental.
there's a
Yeah.
Walmart in every town now. Well, Sam Walton, what did he do? He had a first store. Then he had a second store. Then he had a third store. Now, by the end, he was opening, probably 10 a month. But that wasn't the magnitude of scaling, in the early years.
Yeah. No, I absolutely get that. Go ahead, Spira.
Well, I think very logical. So then I'm curious because now you have physical locations, as you mentioned, across the U.S. And so, like, just how did what it sounds like slow and steady growth, or maybe there were some pops of growth here and there. But were there any criteria that help you decide where the physical location is worth investing in?
It's magical, but not really. If you put pins on a map, I don't have a pin on a map. Well, I almost have a pin on the map. Left coast to right coast, Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Iowa, Ohio, South Carolina. We are about a day's truck drive from the majority of the United States, plus or minus. The only place that's not true is the Pacific Northwest. If you call us from San Francisco, we're about a 9-hour drive to our Arizona work location. If you call us from Boston, we're about 7, 8 hours from our Northeast Ohio location. If you call us from Miami, Florida, 8, 9 hours from our South Carolina. So primarily it's just logistics because our calls come in from all over the United States. And in this business, oftentimes, well, sometimes the only cost is the logistics cost. Many companies, they'll give it to you at no cost if you will just haul it away because, their CEO has a sustainability mandate. We got to be landfill free by, 2032. And some of the companies will even pay the freight. I mean, so again, it's just a logistical thing. That's why the 6 warehouses across the United States.
I love that. But also, when you say the logistics cost, I think just trucks, but actually, when you think about it, if you look at the weight of some of the materials and the size of what you guys have, you need special equipment for loading and unloading, and you count on whoever's getting rid of this stuff to have that. Or do you have to bring that? Is that kind of a hassle or easy to manage?
Well, on the source side, every deal we do is case by case. It's negotiated. I mean, there's some people that say, "Hey, I have this. We're interested. I don't have a forklift." Well, if you don't have a forklift, we say, well, then we'll pass. We're just not interested. And then they have a decision to make. They either go rent a forklift or go to their neighbor and say, hey, will you come bring your forklift across the street for an hour loading? Certainly, if it's of sufficient value, we might go rent a forklift or hire a rigging company. But I think it's important to understand every deal is a negotiated transaction. It's deal by deal. For one thing, our offer is this. I mean, there's some waste streams. I mean, I already said some things we call it free. We don't pay for the materials and they ship them to us. There's other materials that, I mean, we've bought inventories of, 6 figures. That's what we've paid for them. So it's all over the map in terms of the economics of the deals.
And then to that end, I mean, have you entered an era where now you're getting repeat supply and repeat demand for certain categories or sort of sectors industrially?
I think, we have, it's not a lot, less than 20, I would say. We call them our staples.
Right.
Where it's a recurring waste stream across the industry, may not be from the same source, but just from the industry. And back to supply. So you have recurring supply, and then there's enough demand that, they kind of stay in equilibrium. So, like I said, I don't know, 10 to 20 of those staples, but a large percentage of our business is the one-offs, the mistake, the overorder, the canceled project, we made it wrong. Yeah, lots of those. And so we might get 6 truckloads of it and have it for 9 months, but the moment we sell that last one, we may never get that inventory ever again. A fun story, if you guys want a fun, inspirational repurposing story, 1 truckload.
Absolutely.
This is in the last couple of months. Some of it is just on procurement, the inbound side, the supply side. I mean, sometimes my seat is very angering. Sometimes it's very frustrating. Sometimes it's silly. Sometimes it's sad. It can be all those. So if you're an emotional person, maybe it's not a good chair to occupy. So we had a glass company call us, and they just made it. It was like a 12 truckload order. The first truckload of level 8, 2-inch thick ballistic glass, bullet resistant glass, was made, shipped to Sacramento, California, to be installed at a new building on the state of California Capitol complex. I don't think it was at the Capitol, but politicians, well, we've all watched the news. There's been a few politicians that have been shot at. So that's where it was met. I don't know exactly, but I think there was a change order or they changed their specification. The glass company said, we got this truckload. They're not going to use it. What do we do with this? Can you help us? When people hear the story, sell it to a bank. Well, I didn't know all this. You got to learn as you go. But banks, like at a teller window, it's like level 3, level 4. I mean, level 8 is the highest level, 2-inch thick. I mean, it's almost like for a war zone.
Yeah.
So not much reuse opportunities for that. I mean, the panels are huge. They're 3.5 feet wide, 10 feet tall. You can't cut them at this point. They weigh 800 pounds each. I mean, so I said yes. Back to gambling, back to Las Vegas. From Denver, you can go to Las Vegas and then go up to Sacramento, or you can go to Sacramento and down to Las Vegas and then back to Denver. Bring in this truckload of ballistic glass, still brand new in the case. They didn't even take it out of the wood crates. And then I think that repurposing, rehoming, finding these second homes is a lot like police detective work. And an illustration I've used for a long time is in a crime novel, a crime movie. It's a Sherlock Holmes. It's a whodunit. In repurposing, it's who has it and who wants it. But both of them, it's a puzzle. It's discovery. It's working the phones, whatever your methodologies. Anyway, I am thrilled to say I think it's a tremendous story. Level 8, 2-inch thick glass, and I'll tell you one story that made it even more relevant in the last news cycle, the last week. So we rehomed it with a zoo in Texas that's building a brand new lion exhibit, and they're going to install it so the patrons, the visitors, don't have to look through steel fence and wire. And so that's a big thing. If you were reading the news cycles, a gorilla at the San Diego Zoo last week broke some of the glass at their enclosure. I mean, it was big national news all over the media. And interestingly, most zoo glass is 1.5 inches thick, the thickest. Ours is 2-inch. So that zoo in Texas actually purchased over-engineered glass at a deep discount. And so it's a win-win. So it was no longer good to the state of California, and it's going to be rehomed at a zoo in Texas. So that's kind of that fun.
Awesome.
Who has it and who wants it?
Damon, we've got about 20 more minutes. If any story hits you while we keep asking you questions, you have free blank check to just go and tell that story. That's
there you
incredible.
go. We got the trucks blowing over. We got pig manure.
Exactly.
We got ballistic glass going to a zoo. So yeah, this business is not short on good before and after stories.
I also love your anecdote on the creative investigatory detective work that goes into this. It's why I think I fell in love with this industry of just, you have to be thinking about who is this used for. And to the credit of, we had another guest who talked about, like, and I think you've made this point already, you don't always know, and you have to wait for someone else to be like, oh no, this is perfect for this. And so it's this collective sort of crowdsourcing of creativity that like really makes this work.
100%. Our customers, probably 3 characteristics. They're thrifty, they're resourceful, they're pioneering, innovative, and one that gets lost, my ring finger, number 4, is I think our customers are gamblers. They're risk takers, because guess what? We did not sell that glass to the zoo in Texas with a warranty or with hey, for the last 20 years, this glass has worked perfect for your lion enclosure. So our buyers, and you think about society, America, people buy extended warranties all the time. They want assurances. They want warranties. They want guarantees. It's auction language, but when we sell these materials to the cranberry farmer in Wisconsin, it's auction language. As is, where is. As is, where is. And so yeah, our customer base are gamblers. They're risk takers. They're the canary in the coal mine. Somebody's got to go prove it. And I think that's the minority of society that's willing to do that.
Well, do you find that you have any tactics or ways that you inspire prospects to maybe take on that risk, or they, like, you find that they naturally have to have? The reason I'm asking is, like, if you think about the order of magnitude of reuse and impact, environmental impact, either through reuse or repurpose that you have, it's so much more than the daily actions that we can do in our personal lives. So like, if the person at the zoo makes this gamble, it has such an order of magnitude difference, like, that they're personally taking on. So I'm just curious, like, can you influence that, or does it have to be inherently there?
I think it's good question. I think it's largely inherently there. I think, okay, I'll just use entrepreneurism. You can hear a great entrepreneurial story, and I have no idea. 25% of Americans are going to go, wow, that's really cool. Oh my gosh. Because either they are entrepreneurs or they want to be entrepreneurs. The other 75% of America, just fun story. But if you were to, I'm entrepreneurial, so I love those stories. Now, music is not something I'm not musically inclined. And so if I listen to some podcast about how Hamilton the musical was written, I mean, I'm one of the 75%. So what? I mean, it's cool, it's famous, but doesn't really appeal to me, or I won't do anything with it. Okay, that's our template or our analogy. I think with repurposing is most everybody likes a before and after picture, a before and after story. Your listeners, I've given 3 or 4 of them, wow, that's really cool. What I have found is there's going to be 10, 15% of your audience that will actually do something about these stories because they are the risk takers. They are frugal. They are innovative. They're willing to transform something. So I guess that's the answer to the question is you just give the before and after examples. Many people think it's cool, but only, I think it's just like remodeling a house. Most people, when they remodel their kitchen, have to have an interior designer come in there and pick the colors because they just don't have any vision. They don't have any creativity. That's not most people. And I think that's the same thing with this whole repurposing of these industrial cast-offs and discards. It's a smaller sliver of society that has that mentality, that mindset to say, hey, that ballistic glass, because again, you call it ballistic glass, everybody, they're thinking it's for bullets. Well, think bigger, guys, gals, think bigger. And the zoo thought bigger.
I love that because it speaks to the pioneering spirit of reuse and repurpose.
Excellent phrase. Excellent phrase. What was America? Pioneers. I mean, that's what we call them. And that mindset has evaporated in America.
Yeah. And I think that's where for people who, there are lots of people that they might talk to you or Sabir or myself and they go like, how do I get into sustainability? How do I get a career? It's like, well, think where others aren't. And try to work through the problem sets that are difficult, that maybe people aren't necessarily thinking through. And I think that's just been a guiding light for all 3 of us here actually on the pod. And what I try to get others to really understand is like, no, this is an opportunity, people. There's so much opportunity here if you can think like that.
So here's a good repurpose. Happens one state north, Wyoming.
Activated.
So one of the staples of our business is cargo military cargo parachutes. The vast majority get used for some kind of a shade canopy, you can imagine. Interestingly, this is pop quiz, the number 1 buyer of used military cargo parachutes in America is brides for backyard weddings. They'll drape them up in the trees, put Christmas lights up in them, and have a shade canopy for their backyard wedding. That's the most common use. This is brilliant. I mean, this is off the charts resourceful. And interestingly, there's a monastery being constructed in northwest Wyoming. And I've started calling it the monk mindset. The monk mindset. I've talked to them. I've talked to several professors on the subject. But they're building in Wyoming, extremely cold in the winter. They don't want to delay construction. What do? Well, it's brilliant. They bought 7 or 8 parachutes, sewed them together to make a large piece of fabric. In the winter, what do? They put a salamander propane heater under it, and just like a hot air balloon, it rises up, and they build a temporary heated dome so their workers could get in there and can continue construction. So a cast-off of the military, Department of Defense, becomes a heat dome or a solution at a monastery of all things in northwest Wyoming. I mean, that takes resourcefulness, creativity. They're frugal. They're on a budget. And so I'm fascinated. So what is it about the monk mindset that's different than the average person in Seattle or St. Louis or Chattanooga, Tennessee.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, it comes down to like the pressure of convenience, right? Like the monk mindset almost requires the patience, like the creativity, but the patience, and also, as you said, the time as well, right? Like, does the average American, to your point of like the 25 to 75 split, 75% of them, my guess would be, don't have the patience or feel the pressure of something else that and influences a convenience decision. And I don't know if we can escape that. I mean, I'm curious
Well,
what you guys
I think
think.
in America we did escape it. I think it's got one. The reason we have lost our pioneering ways, back to an earlier phrase, I think there's one thing absolutely, and I can point easily back to somewhere in history where we didn't have it and people were way more resourceful. It's called economics. So we live in a time in America, the land of abundance. We can just go buy brand new because most people can afford it. We go to Amazon, we go to Walmart, we go to Kohl's, we go to the bike store, whatever it is. Well, if you have parents, grandparents, great grandparents that lived through the 1930s, the Great Depression, that was a very resourceful people group because they had to be. And if you travel to third world countries now, people are still very resourceful in Africa, Southeast Asia. Why? Because they have to be. In America, you don't. So we've lost it because of economic abundance.
It's so easy to think. I feel like I've had that thought before, and then somehow there was a moment of clarity here when it came down to particular goods that communities would be reusing and repurposing and making use of. And I think there was a moment there where that hit even more than it usually does. Because, it's that common joke, right? You're like, oh, grandma's crazy. She always used to reuse all this stuff. It's like, no, because she was purposely conditioned to be like, no, we are stewards of these resources that we've brought into our community.
Yeah, and we make fun of grandpa.
Right.
But if
yeah.
Wall Street collapses tomorrow, grandma's going to be a lot wiser all of a sudden than she used to be.
Yeah, grandma knows what to do. Where do you think where do you think we are? This kind of gets to a market failure, I do think. I mean, we've somehow engineered convenience and abundance to the point where we can be so wasteful. But there's still seemingly a market failure in this arbitrage, right? I mean, there's so many resources that can be used, and yet still somehow the mindset is it's so much cheaper just to get rid of it and throw it away. But yet there's so much economic opportunity in reuse and repurpose. How have we not more fundamentally structured that into business models, where at the large corporate level, it's just so engineered to just be kind of wasteful with some of those materials?
Well, because I think it primarily goes back to what we just discussed, economics. Because
it just works out in the end.
Yeah, I mean, we have enough money. We don't want the liability. So the fire hose, we do a lot of used fire hose. Well, many big companies want that fire departments, that's probably a bad example, but companies like to send stuff to the landfill because it removes their liability.
I think that's exactly right.
And this is a dirty secret, recycling, while it's environmentally good, if you're familiar with the EPA hierarchy, reuse is the best. A little less than that is recycling, but for big companies, recycling is beautiful. Why? Because it's brand destruction. In recycling, you chip, shred, grind, melt. So that product is shredded, it's melted. My liability is gone. If it's reused, oh my gosh. And especially if they're changing the use for it. I got a big bullseye on my back, and if it says Budweiser and they're using it to play Frisbee and it slashes somebody's neck and they die, oh, I didn't mean for my beer can to become a Frisbee, and now I'm suing Budweiser. So they love for that aluminum can to be recycled and melted because then their name is destroyed.
I think you nailed it. Yep. Liability and risk mitigation.
So we all like to talk sustainability. See it all the time, every day in my office. We're sustainable. You read the CEO report right up until it costs us money or it raises our liability. I'm out. It's going to the landfill. We're sending it to the recycler. So that's a dirty little secret of reduce, reuse, recycle.
Brand problems. As we
Brand
wrap our time, as we wrap our time together, I'm curious. You're an entrepreneur in a small slice of the world, meaning that you're going out and venturing in this in between, the gap in between the before and after. Any inspiration for potential entrepreneurs that you want to leave the audience with is that they should gamble in this space?
Well, I don't want to aspire them too much because you use the word. I prefer operating in a monopoly. I mean, that's way, way better economics. It's
Totally.
not so good for the environment. I would say I'm going to give it a broad label: sustainability, landfill diversion. I get that email, that phone call, I don't know, once a month from somebody that's wants some inspiration or has some questions. I just say, right now it's a deep ocean. We are a slice of the ocean, but we're tiny. There's still truckloads and truckloads and truckloads and millions of pounds getting landfilled or getting recycled that doesn't need to. So there's room. There's room.
And in that deep chasm of stuff that is going to landfill and that is potential for reuse and repurpose, what gives you the most hope at what you're doing, at what is next on our evolution of reuse and repurposing? How do you look at that and go, this is solvable?
I think it's being driven by us, the consumers. I mean, we got 3 consumers on this call. I mean, it's pressure from consumers, from people with wallets, and they want big companies to be more environmentally responsible. And I mean, that's where it's going to start. I think back in the 1930s, we talked about that. Reuse, repurposing was economically motivated. That's why they did it. Now, as we're in the 20s, now we'll soon be in the 30s, the 2040s. If we continue to be a nation of abundance, what's going to be driving it is environment. People are just going to say, big corporations, you have to try harder to keep it out of the landfill. Then they're going to look for companies like ours. What do we do with this? And then, it's going to kind of, I think it's going to grow. I mean, there's just too much shareholder and consumer pressure that, hey, we got to be better. We got to be better. But ultimately, it's us with the wallets. We have to be open to reuse. And most people, they don't like to buy a used piece of clothing at the Goodwill store. Oh, that's got somebody else's, it's back to elementary school, somebody else's cooties on it. Well, so what do you want? And it's back to, so I chastise the big companies. I'm going to chastise the listeners. Well, you want to save the environment. How many articles of clothing in your closet did you buy at a thrift store? And I would say many people listening to this who are sustainable, who are pro-environment, the answer is going to be at or near 0 articles of clothing. So, you can't have it both ways. How many people are watching TV at home on a used TV? Probably very few. They're watching TV on a brand new TV, and I could go on and on and on. So it really kind of comes back to us as consumers. If we're not willing to buy reuse, then it's got to go to the landfill, because what else is going to happen with it?
Supply and demand.
Yep, supply demand. Yeah, and we're, as consumers, we're the ones who can change the demand equation.
Exactly.
And then I think the only call to action there on the consumer end, when you're gonna throw that thing away, think of repurpose, think of reuse, really try hard, think creatively. Yes, there we go.
All right.
In terms of call to action, where are people going? I see repurposedmaterialsinc.com. Is that correct?
Yep, repurposedmaterialsinc.com. You can follow me, Damon Carson, LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn Repurposed Materials page, Facebook. If you go to our website, we have a widely followed couple of times a week e-newsletter that people love it. I mean, if that's your thing, people love it. We tell a lot of these stories. It's a point of inspiration and, just ideation and coming up with ideas and watching what somebody else does. Hey, I'm not a hog farmer, but that was pretty cool what they did with that gas pipe. I bet I can solve a different problem with a different material. But it was the hog farmer that said, I don't care if it's expired. Doesn't matter to me.
This is going to be my new favorite newsletter. So I'm there. I'm all for it. Thank you, Damon. Thanks for the time today.
Good to talk to you guys.